Strikes are a feature of the South African economy and have been for a number of years. In fact, the right to strike, a right to peaceful protest action is enshrined in our Constitution. And people have the right to express their views in the manner of a strike. But there is an economic cost to a strike. And there may be costs over and above the economic costs. But interestingly enough, strikes are not always about the obvious. They are not always about salary levels and about money. In fact, some of the recent strikes have been about other parts of the total reward system. We've had issues around housing that formed part of the tragedy at Marikana, at KDC East. We've had issues around funeral policies that have been implemented unilaterally without consultation, and just generally employee benefits as a whole. Many years ago, there were strikes in the mining sector as a result of really low pension payouts, whether it be funeral policies, whether it be housing or education assistance. It doesn't really matter. You can all boil it down, in many cases, to financial distress. People simply are not financially healthy enough, and as a result, feel pressured by the environment in which they're in. And they need to take action to change that particular environment. One of the biggest problems and one of the exacerbating factors, certainly within the mining industry, has been the unsecured debt levels, or just debt levels in general, of those individuals and the repayments that they make. Many people taking home virtually no money every month. May not be that the salaries are that bad, but the indebted levels are just so high that once they've serviced that debt, there really isn't much left to live on. The challenge is, how do you convince people to leave the savings in the fund for a period of time and only access it in the most dire of circumstances? And that's a challenge that the industry needs to rise to and look at ways of finding or look at mechanisms of keeping the monies in the savings pool as long as possible. In respect of the group risk benefits and the medical schemes, very often if there's a break in service and there's been a period away, a period where no premiums were paid, where no cover was in force, and a person then rejoins following, say, a reinstatement, it may be that there's some sort of pre-existing condition clause applied on the group risk benefits, i.e. you can't access your benefits if the medical condition, or if something happened to you in that period where premiums weren't paid. And the same is true of medical schemes, where they may impose waiting periods for certain benefits, once again, once you rejoin and you're re-engaged. And that could be a big problem. So somebody who has rejoined you, is re-engaged through the process, then submits a claim, and that claim is repudiated, could lead to further unhappiness and potential industrial action. So what can be done about all of this? The main message is really just preparation. Strikes are a feature of our economy. They are enshrined in the Constitution. They will happen from time to time. It needs to be clear what the policy, what the procedure is when a strike takes place, whether it be protected or unprotected, who will be covered, who will not be covered, will premiums be paid, who will pay those premiums, are the insurers advised of it, what do the policies say, what do the pension fund rules say. All of that can be set up front long before any strike takes place. You don't need to wait for a strike to happen to actually try and sort those issues out, because by then it's often far too late. And the final message on this particular chapter is that it's clear when looking at strikes and the causes behind the strikes that an employee's well-being, financial well-being, mental well-being, and some strikes have even been due to physical well-being, i.e. the provision of medical services, etc., that needs to be taken into account in totality when the employer considers the employee-employer relationship.